And we're back on a Monday night. It is time for Monday Night Smack with the Mac Man. Good to see everybody. What a great early bird special we had with Ricky Wilson. Good to see everybody in the house tonight. And got a lot to cover. And hopefully we can do it in a kind and gently cowboy fashion without too many glasses being broken, without too many barbs being thrown, and good Lord. And without too many smackdowns in the house. Smack is what we call it. Smack with the Mac. Mac with the smack. And, all right. I know Jenny Castlenova's out there, so I might as well go ahead and get this out of the way tonight, you know.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my
We hear you. We hear you. We do understand the words that are coming out of my mouth tonight. We're so grateful that you're here. What a great early bird with Ricky Wilson. I want to just give her kudos and a shout out tonight. What a great time we had with her earlier tonight. I encourage you to go back and listen to that video. It's on all our channels as this show is airing tonight. And we got a lot of video to play for you. And a couple of stories we're going to go over. Look, there's no doubt about it. I've just left the TV, just watching the news outlets a little bit. The number one story tonight is President Biden's revelation that he's got prostate cancer. We hope, not sure we'll be able to do it tonight, but maybe we'll get James Akers on later tonight, or this week at least, maybe late tomorrow night to chime in on this. And there's other things going on. James Comey is offering a lame excuse about the 86-47 thing, which of course he will. If this man weasels out of this, I'm going to be highly perturbed with Pam Bondi and Patel. I really am. I'm already perturbed with Patel and Bongino a little bit. I watched them a little bit yesterday morning on Maria, and they sounded no different to me than all the other political hacks in D.C. And, I know that they're maybe trying to keep things close to the chest, and they don't want to go out and publicly say something. But memo to Cash and Dan, Epstein didn't kill himself. And for goodness sake, I mean, there's like a 15-minute, 20-minute blip in the cameras in that cell from the time that Epstein did what he did. And you would have to suspend all reality to believe there wasn't something nefarious going on. When the cameras worked all the way up to that moment, he takes a sheet, evidently, from his bed. He gets up on a chair, puts it on the rafter, somehow or another he connects it to something, a light or something in the cell, and then hangs that sheet around his neck, breaks his neck supposedly. But the only time that the cameras don't catch anything that's going on is that period of time that he's doing all of that. And all of a sudden, miraculously, the jailhouse people just show up minutes after he's dead. And they've got no explanation in why they couldn't account for those 20 minutes. So give me a break. I don't think there's anybody in the universe that don't believe that something was nefariously done to Jeffrey Epstein. He knew too many people. He knew too many secrets. That island was a nightmare for these young girls, some of them in their teens, maybe younger. I mean, this was some hideous, dark stuff. And to watch Bongino and Patel both sort of blow it off yesterday morning was sort of disheartening. And I'm not expecting them. I'd have been better off if they just wouldn't have said nothing. I wish that they just wouldn't have said anything and just said, hey, we're continuing to get to the place. We're going to release these files. I would have felt differently about this 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, because I'm trying to be patient. I'm trying to take my own advice that I gave you, not draw any conclusions right away. But what I was watching yesterday, folks, was no different than the Democrats, how they do around these questions. And I respect Bongino, Patel, he's a live wire, and we'll see. But I think that I don't think nobody's buying that Epstein. I don't think nobody's buying that Epstein actually did kill himself. I'll put it like this: if he did kill himself, he had help. I'll even agree. I'll even agree with Cash and Dan that he killed himself if that's what they want to believe. But let's just be frank with each other out there tonight, and let's just say that he had some help. He had some help. Let's just say that. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Good to see everybody in the house. We got some new faces tonight. It's not SmackDown. It's just Smack tonight. There ain't no SmackDown anymore. This is Smack. The Mac Smack. And I'm going to put a poll out there, and I'm going to simply ask you a question. Do you think Jeffrey Epstein killed himself? That'll be our question for tonight. I'm going to let you chime in that in the chat room. And that'll be our poll tonight. We'll play around with that. But I want to go back to Joe Biden tonight. Look, me and Ricky talked about Joe. And folks, I can separate, and I said it yesterday morning on the Face Show. I said it tonight. I said it today on the radio. I'm going to say it tonight on Monday Night Smack. We have got people out there applauding and rejoicing that Joe Biden's got prostate cancer. Chris McDonald is not rejoicing. Joe Biden's a human being. He's a daddy. He's a husband. He's a man, just like me. My dad had this same dreaded disease. This is the kind of cancer my dad had the first time. It metastasized in his bones. It came back in his bones. They did the surgery on my dad. They didn't even do the radiation and chemo. Daddy just took everything out. And even doing that, the cancer returned 2 years after the operation, and it got on his bones. And that's when he had to have a miracle from God, and he did twice. And it would have killed my dad if God wouldn't have intervened. Daddy got throat cancer 4 years later after that, 5 years later. Survived that. God healed him 3 times. 3 times Daddy survived cancer. I don't know many people survive cancer once. It's not funny. And it's hard on the family. I don't care what you think about Joe Biden as a president. I don't care what you think about him personally. The man's got a soul, and we need to be praying for him tonight. We need to ask the Lord to touch him and to heal him and to reveal himself to Joe Biden. I can do this. I can separate the man from what the man did. I can separate the fact that, as we all do, we all need mercy. And we all, who all deserve hell, we better be grateful that God don't treat us like we want to treat our fellow man sometimes. I'll just leave it at that. The way people treat others is a disgusting display of nothing but evil in itself. And the way that people handle these things, to me, is more disgusting than the individual that they are calling evil. There ain't none of us tonight have a right to throw any stones. None. And we need to understand that there's a family tonight that's dealing with this. Now, having said all that, I can have a lot of sympathy for Joe Biden, and I'm praying for him tonight, folks. I am. I don't rejoice in any of this. I don't have any kind of idea that, well, he's getting what he deserves. You better be glad none of us are getting what we deserve. You better watch that tone, and you better watch your mouth when you say stuff like that, because you're pronouncing judgment on yourself when you do. But I can separate that and talk about the cover-up of the media and the Democrat Party. And yes, I think Ricky made a great point, Joe Biden himself, because Joe wanted this presidency so bad that he was willing to take the office in 2020 knowing he had this cancer in his body. The prostate cancer that he's got is such an aggressive type. They say that it's likely this man had this cancer in his body for nearly 10 years, and there's no way that he didn't know that. And then you've got the White House physician that was lying. You had the media that was lying. You had the Democrat machine that was lying. You had Democrat politicians that were lying about it. And people that were bringing up the fact the man was acting in a very I don't know what the word was. I mean, the man was a vegetable, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean, we literally had a vegetable operating this country, and I'm not sure it was him that was operating it. That's the other question tonight, is who was running the nation. And I don't think anybody knows. I don't care what you may think you know, but you don't know, and I don't know. There are probably a lot of characters behind the scenes that were pulling the strings. We know this, he wasn't signing those documents himself. It was done by an auto pen. They've admitted that. We also know that Jill was very well aware of his condition. we're very well aware that his aides were seeing these things, and they were keeping tight-lipped and quiet about it. They were probably under threat not to say nothing. The media was definitely complicit. So all of this come to Jesus now that you're seeing in the media tonight with Jake Tapper and Scarborough and all these voices like Van Jones on the Crap News Network and David Axelrod, that's all of a sudden making it out, well, if you question the media's handling of this, you're not being empathetic to Joe. No, I can be very empathetic to Joe Biden tonight. I am very empathetic to him. I'm praying, again, that God will touch his heart before it's too late. Because from what I hear from, I heard from Rodney Jackson on Hannity tonight, right before I came on, and he was the former White House physician under Trump. And Rodney Jackson's a representative now, and he said that this kind of cancer that Biden has, there's not a good prognostication for it, meaning that it's deadly. And, you know, I don't know if they've come out and said that he's got so many days or months to live, but it is spreading throughout his body. And unless he gets a miracle, Joe Biden is not in a good place to be. I'm more concerned about his spiritual state. But I can also say that, again, I can separate that from the cover-up. It's a pathetic disgrace. I like to say a bad word. It is a bad mistake. It is terrible. It is disgraceful how the country was put in that position. And all of these policies, folks, the open border, the abortion, the gangbangers being allowed in, the open door perversion that was allowed in, the corruption in government, the attempts to destroy President Trump, even while Biden was in office, the rogue judiciary, the rogue attorney general's office, weaponizing these agencies against American citizens, throwing grandmothers in jail that were praying in front of abortion clinics, throwing parents in jail and school boards simply because they didn't want their kids reading about the drag queen who has sex in the back seat with another drag queen and thinking that's free speech, and able to tell kindergartners that this is normal, and parents raising hell at school boards being called terrorists. That was being promoted during these last 4 years, and that was being done. And we've got people that are dead tonight because of our policies in Afghanistan, the withdrawal of Afghanistan, the Lincoln Riley murders, the Rachel Morin murders, this open border that Tom Holman is doing his dead level best to close tonight. That was done under Biden. It wasn't done under Trump. In hindsight, I know that I think it's the best thing that ever happened in 2020 that did, even though it put the country in the crosshairs of a abysmal downward slide that, by the help and the grace of God, President Trump is doing everything he can to get us out of this, fighting Republicans and fighting Democrats at the same time, and still fighting the media, fighting rogue judges. And I saw D.C. Drano put a tweet out tonight, and I may have it. We'll read it. Something to the effect, he said there was an insurrection of government with Joe Biden stealing the election in 2020, and now we're having another insurrection with these rogue judges trying to steal Trump's executive power through these rogue decisions. There have been some victories. There have been some defeats. I don't trust the Supreme Court to do the right thing no more than I trust. In fact, Chris McDonald looks in the mirror and that mirror don't start laughing and breaking into pieces. But the fact of the matter is, it was a cover-up. Trump, if he would have won re-election in 2020, would have never had the power and never had the ability to do then what he is able to do now. But we cannot let this party off the hook of the Democrats. We cannot forget what they did. Now, I want to play a couple of videos along this line, and we're going to keep you here tonight for a little bit. And so I can say, just get your seats together. Here is, this never gets old. Let me find it here. We don't need to forget this. This is a Instagram video. We got another video off of X I want to play you, but this is just a sampling. This is just a sampling. Let me turn that speaker off because it'll vibrate if I don't. This is a sampling of what they were telling us for 4 years, and any of us that questioned this were censored, told to shut up, told that we were lying. We were told that this was just a figment of our imagination, that Joe Biden wasn't cognitively there. But this is what the media was saying about him and for the last 4 years, including many Democrats. Roll the tape.
The vaccine can stop the spread of these diseases.
Actually, wrong video. We're going to talk about the vaccine not spreading to stop. Hang on just 1 second. I've got the video here somewhere. Goodness gracious, I just had that video. I do this to myself all the time. Oh, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll play this one. This is a good example. I want you to watch the legacy media, how they handled Trump's assassination compared to how they handled Joe Biden's cognitive decline. This is Stephanopoulos and Reddix from ABC, the All But Crap Network. Roll the tape.
Say that even a cancer diagnosis, and again, it's touched, it seems, virtually every American, whether a friend or family or personally, that even for a day, there's no pause on the divisiveness.
Yeah, it's that kind of polarized moment, right? But it does feel like this particular moment, given the diagnosis, highlights just how politics shades everything, even a human moment when a family is going through what this family is going through.
Of course, President Trump and his supporters have contributed to this violent rhetoric as well.
Well, absolutely, George. We were just looking back this morning at some of the things that former President Trump has said. He warned last March of potential death and destruction if he were charged by the Manhattan District Attorney. Our country is being destroyed as they tell us to be peaceful. Trump in January warned of bedlam in the country if the criminal charges against him succeeded. And of course, in March, he said, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That will be the least of it. He said he was partly joking and that was taken out of context. But those are indeed his words. And you have heard it from supporters as well. And supporters are certainly, in some parts, angry. And let's remember January 6th.
All right. The reason, did you hear that crap? You know, they are blowing off the bombshell that went off this weekend about Biden, but they're blaming Trump. They're not blaming Biden for the cover-up about the cancer, but they're blaming Trump for the rhetoric that led to his own assassination. Stephanopoulos, I hope he gets every dime of that $40 million that he won from this idiot at ABC. These people disgust me. I pray for their soul, but they disgust me. They're complicit, every one of them, in this cover-up of Joe Biden tonight. Here's the video I wanted to show you. Watch this. Don't ever forget these clips, folks. This is what they were telling you for 4 years about Joe Biden. Roll the tape.
If you're concerned about Joe Biden's age, you probably don't know Joe Biden.
It's not just making an issue of Biden's age. It's lying. It's saying he's senile, it's saying he's demented, saying he's out of it.
Calling us a liar. They're saying he's senile and demented. Roll the tape.
Biden is actually in good shape.
Right. Mentally, he's quite acute.
Any aide who engages with him or reporters, we can see this. The gears of his mind are working.
The right-wing media has so fixated on Biden and Biden purportedly having cognitive issues.
Russian television has been filled with speculation about President Biden's age, about his mental state of mind.
That's an issue pushed by right-wing media, but it's not correct.
Yeah, Republicans on the other side have spent 4 years almost kind of weaponizing Biden's age against him. Trump is not that much younger than him.
Biden is just a couple of years older than Donald Trump.
Why so much attention on Biden's age? Trump isn't much younger.
This whole vein is really, really unseemly. I mean, ageism.
I'm going to say quite bluntly, there is some ageism going on here.
Yeah, I think there is some ageism going on.
Biden's personal physician wrote that he, quote, remains a healthy, vigorous 80-year-old male.
He is a healthy, vigorous 80-year-old male.
He had a good physical. His doctor says he's vigorous.
The reality is nothing like the dystopian picture that the Republicans are trying to paint of this senile, doddering president.
Senile, doddering president, Mr. Eugene. We were being kind. That's the end of that video. Did you hear all that crap? This is the media for you, folks. This is what they were pushing. And anybody that questioned Joe Biden, this is what we were being called. Dystopia, lying, out of touch. He was fine. Joe Biden's fine. Joe Biden's fine. Here's his physician, the White House physician, wouldn't even answer a question about it when they questioned him back in the day about Joe Biden's, why they didn't give him a cognitive test. Roll the tape. Watch this.
How's the president's health? It is? Are you going to come to the briefing room to address us? Probably not. Could that change before the end of this term? And how is his mental cognition?
It's excellent.
It's excellent. Is there a reason you didn't perform a cognitive test on him?
Yeah, he's here every day.
He's good every day? What about the speculation about Parkinson's disease or a related condition? Dr. O'Connor, is there anything to that speculation that there might be something related to Parkinson's that he has?
Yeah, he's good.
Okay. And the specialist's visit to the White House, did that have anything to do with that concern?
Yeah, he's seen him 3 times. None of it was spared.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're going to download this video that's coming. That's with the White House physician. You know, when Ronnie Jackson was the White House physician for Trump, the media was absolutely brutal to him. They accused him of lying all the time about Trump's mental state. They accused him of lying about Trump's physical state, when they never questioned that man you just saw right there about telling us that Joe Biden was in excellent health, excellent state of mind. Not one time did they question him in the manner they did Ronnie Jackson. I want to play you this, and we're going to go on to some other stuff. This is Jake Tapper today with Van Jones. President Trump chimed in on this too. We're going to play you his response to all of this. But you got to watch this with Tapper, Van Jones, and David Axelrod. This is their take on this. And Van Jones had something interesting to say, and I got a comment or two about what he says about it. Roll the tape.
You were on the record in 2022 voicing concerns about Biden's age and ability. Whom do you blame for the decision of him to run for re-election and the decision to hide his declining abilities as much as they were able to?
Well, look, at the top end, you have to blame him because he made the decision. But he was, and your book reflects this in many different ways, he was shielded by a coterie of advisors and his family. They were in this confirmation bubble, and they tried to shield the world from his decline, and they tried to shield him from his own standing and his polling numbers and so on. And so at the end of the day, I have to point the finger at the people around him who didn't do him a service.
All right. Axelrod's pointing to the people around him. Hey, Dave, let me do my first time tonight. Hey, Dave, the people around him, moron, was you.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
Elementary, my dear Watson. You see how they're throwing each other under the bus? Oh, I'm blaming the people around Joe Biden. I bet you are, Dave. It was you and Van Jones.
By encouraging him to continue. I think it was obvious to the public. It may not have been obvious to a lot of politicians. I actually think it was, but it wasn't politically wise in their judgment to speak out. But it was obvious to the American people, even before that debate, that the president was just too old. He would have been closer to 90.
It was not about his age. I don't even think it was about his age. I think we saw things, folks, him talking to imaginary people, shaking hands with invisible people, wandering around stages, not knowing where he was going, having to be let off the stage, that Obama tape, him mumbling, falling down planes, being overseas, not knowing where he was at, falling asleep with dignitaries. And, folks, it was more than his age. But let me tell you what's going on here. I heard Greg Gutfeld say something tonight that made a lot of sense. You see, people like Axelrod and Tapper and Van Jones hated Trump so much. The whole media narrative was simple. If we tell the country that Joe Biden is a vegetable that can't add 2 and 2 together. And he's got cancer that's probably killing him. And he's not able to run the country. What's going to be the alternative? And see, they always come back to Donald John Trump. That was the alternative. And they weren't going to have that. So they lied. And they covered it up. Let me play this video. And I got more things to say about this because it's important, because there's a parallel to something that happened in this country, and the reaction is so different tonight. Roll the tape.
It wasn't politically wise in their judgment to speak out, but it was obvious to the American people, even before that debate, that the president was just too old. He would have been closer to 90 than 80 if he had won re-election, and he already was showing decline. So I blame the people around him, because real loyalty, and it's hard when you work for President Jake to tell them hard truths, but real loyalty demanded that they say, Mr. President, it's just not there, and it's not in your interest, and it's better for you, the country, and the Democratic Party if you leave now.
Van, I remember how emotional you were in the immediate moments after the June 27, 2024 debate because of what you saw on the stage. And with all this new reporting coming out, and I should disclose that I gave both of you copies of the book so you would have a little bit more information. Do you feel like you were duped, Van? Like, how do you feel?
Do you feel like you were duped, Van? How do you feel? Are you seriously asking that question, Jake? Do you feel like you were duped? The Democratic Party wasn't duped, Jake. They were in on this. And see, this is what they're doing tonight. They're telling us all, well, we didn't know this. We didn't know he was a vegetable. We didn't know he was cognitive. We didn't know he couldn't add 2 and 2. We didn't know he was seeing little green men at night. We didn't know he had cancer. We didn't know any of this. And any of us out here that brought these things up were labeled being mean-spirited and hateful and disrespectful to the president, and because we hated the country, we would throw up the president's mental state, and we were just out of touch. You heard Eugene Robinson, we were a dystopian society, fascinated on Biden's mental health, as if that's not important, being that he was the most important freaking man in the universe with his hand on nuclear codes. And his hand, and folks, a lot of this stuff that took place in this country under his leadership took place because he was not in control and other people were calling the shots. And God knows tonight, if you was to sit Joe Biden down and ask him, hey, what part of the 4 years that you ruled this country, what part did you do and what part did the other people do? He couldn't tell you. Probably couldn't tell you tonight. So, Jake, spare me this where you dupe stuff. No, you Dems wasn't duped. You Dems were in on it. And the media was in on it.
First, this book is extraordinary.
No, it's not. It's a pile of crap.
I don't care who you are, left, right, or otherwise. Anybody who cares about this country and about just the dynamics of power, this is the emperor's new clothes playing itself out in real time. Everybody knew, but everyone was afraid to say, except for David Axelrod for 2 years, that something was wrong here. And so, I was shocked. I love Joe Biden. I don't like him.
I was shocked. I didn't like Joe Biden. I loved him.
I got a chance to work with him when I was a part of the Obama administration and loved him more every day. I was shocked to see his condition when he came out, and so was the world. And that wasn't the first time he was in that condition. The book makes it very, very clear. There are people who knew and said nothing. And
including you, Van.
Against this,
let me stop that. Including you, Van Jones. Including your network, Crap News Network. Including the Nothing But Crap Network. Including the Constant Bullshit Network. Including the Nothing But Crap Network. Including Full of Excrement Fox News. There were many on Fox News that never questioned Joe Biden's cognitive ability.
Public. And I think the Democrats are going to pay for a long time for being a part of what is now being revealed to be a massive cover-up.
Yeah, now they're calling it a massive cover-up because they've gotten their backsides handed to them, and all this is blowing up in their face now. A couple of things about this, and I'm going to move on to some other video because we've got some other fish to fry tonight. Listen, it's amazing to me that this news about the cancer came out hours after the Her tapes came out. Don't ever believe that this was a coincidence, that after those audio tapes, because see, the media stopped talking about the Her tapes tonight. I was going on the air Friday night, and I didn't have time to really download a lot of video and audio, and we got some this week coming, and we're going to talk to James Akers about it. He was on a radio program Friday afternoon. I want to say that I don't think they had come out Friday afternoon. There's no coincidence that the cancer news came out within hours of those audio tapes being released that showed Joe Biden not even knowing where he put a file cabinet, showing that he didn't even know his son was dead. He didn't remember what year he was vice president. And to read it is one thing, but to hear him stutter and mumble, and you can hear the special counsel trying to lead him with his hand. It's almost like, I'm sure they wouldn't have done that with Trump, but they were almost forcing Joe Biden to try to sound right, and they couldn't even try, even trying to weigh the interview down toward Biden, they couldn't fix what was being done and what was being said. So he just decided, well, yeah, we believe he broke the law and hid these documents that he had no right to touch. These were basically things, and again, the very same thing that Trump was accused of and charged for and raided in the middle of the night, Melania and Barron and his family at Mar-a-Lago with basically orders from Merrick Garland to shoot to kill if he gave any resistance. Folks, this was, to me, that was an assassination attempt in itself. But you got a president that while he was vice president, he didn't have any right to those federal documents and those classified documents, but he was sticking them in his garage. And you know, the media didn't know what to do with that Friday night. The right-wing media did, but the left-wing media was going nuts. And that was another bombshell that was going off. So they said, well, we got to figure out something. So it's amazing to me how the cancer issue comes right on the heels of the Her tapes within hours. Hours. So now we're not talking about the Her tapes this weekend. We're talking about Joe Biden's cancer tonight. That's all the media's talking about, right wing and left. And the rats are running for cover. And the pieces of turd are running for cover because they covered it up. I got to share something with you. I was 9 years old, 1974, and never will forget this. And up into that time, we had, I don't think we really had a president resign office probably in over 100 years. I never will forget the night I was sitting in my dad's office. It was my bedroom. My dad was a Baptist preacher at the time, and we didn't have a lot of money in those days. We were just a middle class, poor family. And my bedroom happened to serve as Dad's office during those days. It was a small apartment we had in Atlanta. But I never will forget, I remember this. I was sitting on the floor with Dad watching television the night that Richard Nixon resigned in disgrace. And the media was calling for his head. Congress was calling for his head. He had, the break-in at the Democrat National Headquarters has caught up with him. He had all this stuff on tape. And, man, the media was going to town because he's a Republican president. Hillary Clinton was one of the voices wanting his head, claiming that it was a disgrace and a brutal of all. Jimmy Carter, during his infamous speech right before we played the hockey game in 1980 to beat the Russians, he had come on television and he threw Nixon under the bus and saying, well, we have seen the horrors of Watergate and the destruction of the institution of government and the trust that people have in government, and we need to gain our morale back and all this bullshit, typical left-wing stuff when it's a Republican that's gotten their hand caught in the cookie jar. Richard Nixon was crucified in the media. He was crucified by the Republican Party. He was crucified by Dems. He was crucified by Hillary Clinton. He was crucified by every politician of that day. He basically went into obscurity after he left office, spent the last 2 decades of his life in California. He died in 94. I was actually in California the weekend that he died, and I never will forget it. And his library is out there. And I've got my own opinion about Richard Nixon. There's probably not many of yours. I think Richard Nixon was actually a good president. Did he make some mistakes? Yeah, he made a lot of mistakes. There were prophetic words being given to people in this country to pray for Richard Nixon, and they were ignored because people didn't like his politics. And many ministers sold him under the table too and blasted him and didn't pray for him. And instead of praying for him, they betrayed him. And he went out of this life a bitter man. It hurt. It hurt Richard Nixon. It hurt his family. It hurt Pat, his wife. But they crucified him over a cassette tape. Over a cassette tape. Well, let's just fast forward 50 years tonight, folks. Let's fast forward 50 years. They didn't crucify Joe Biden over this. They let him do it. They knew what was going on. I don't see anybody tonight taking responsibility for a thing. The media is running like a bunch of rats for cover, and they're throwing each other under the bus, and they're throwing Joe Biden under the bus. And, you know, I'll agree with Ricky tonight when she was on earlier tonight, and she said, well, Joe Biden's partly to blame. He is partly to blame because he wanted this office. But the part that Van Jones said that the Democrat Party's not going to be for, you know, people are going to hold them accountable for a long time, don't count on it. Don't count on it. Because we've got a populace and a voting bloc in this country that hates Trump and hates the right so bad that they will be willing, I guarantee you right now, if the midterms were being held right now, don't count on the fact that everybody's going to abandon the Dems. There's a good part of our population tonight, folks, that looks at the people that are the enemy in this. It's not being the media and not being Joe Biden, not being the Democrat machine. They look at you and me that called this stuff out as being the enemy. So all that you just heard by Van and Jake the Snake and David Axelhead, let me just say this. That was nothing but political talk. They didn't mean that. There was nothing sincere in that interview. And again, it's this hyperbole that you get that they say, well, the Democrat Party won't recover this from a long time. Van Jones knows good and well. They're going to be back on CNN in 2 weeks. This will be forgotten. And they'll be trashing Trump again, calling the Trump supporters Nazis, calling us racist, calling us fascist. And all of this will be swept under the rug. And when we go to the polls in a year and a half for the midterms, the Democrats won't mention it. And I guarantee you many Republicans won't mention it. It'll be like it never happened. So don't buy into this narrative that the country is going to forget it, because we will, or we won't forget it. We will. I've got a dear friend, Eddie Cole. We had lunch back in 2020. I never will forget this. And right after the election, it was 21. It was right after the election. It was probably about a year, because I remember it was after everything that happened in 21. And we were sitting in a restaurant, and Eddie's he's an old fun guy. And I asked him, I said, do you believe this election was stolen? And Eddie just laughed like he does, and he says, of course not. He used a few vernaculars I can't use on the show. But he said, no. He said, it sure wasn't. And I was blown away, because Eddie is a pretty reasonably headed guy, and he's middle of the road, and, you know, he's not rabid Trump. He's not rabid anti-Trump. He's just a down-to-earth, good old buddy. That's why I love him. He's my dear friend. And I said, really? I said, I would think you would think that maybe there was shenanigans in it. And he looked at me, he folded his arms, and never will forget it. He folded his arms, and he said, Chris, let me tell you two things. He said, I don't doubt that there was some stuff that went on in some of these states. He said, I do not doubt that there was some stuff that went on. He said, it goes on in every election, though. He said, we act like this is the first time this has happened. He said, it's not. He said, there's been stuff going on in these elections for 30 years. Never been fixed. But then he said something that I thought about tonight as I listened to this crap interview that Jake Tapper gave these two losers from the Dem Party and the media. He said, don't you ever underestimate, and I don't mean this disrespectfully what I'm about to say, but he's telling the truth. He said, don't you ever underestimate the stupidity of the American voter. He said there were people out there. He said he may not have got 80 million votes, but he said he got a good number of votes. And for a man that didn't even leave his basement for a year before that election, thanks to the weaponized virus that they did with COVID. By the way, how can you sit there and believe that there was not an effort to do some things to it? But he said, Chris, he said, people still went out to the polls and they voted for him. And then he looked at him. He said, I hate to tell you, Mac. He said, there were Christians that voted for him. He said, I got Christian friends I know that hated Trump so bad, they voted for him. That's the outlier tonight. I don't care what they're telling you, how shocked they are at Joe Biden. They would still vote for him tonight. You got Jim Clyburn right now, folks, the senator from South Carolina. You know what he said today? He said that he believed that Joe Biden, if he was elected tonight, he would be fit to run the country for 4 more years. That came out of his mouth. That came out of Jim Clyburn's mouth. There's people out there tonight that still are holding on to this fact that this is not that big a deal and he wasn't that bad. I watched an interview over the weekend when all this was breaking, and there were people saying that, you know, we didn't see him and we didn't see this and we wasn't around him that much, which is a crock of crap. They were all around him. But this is the part that you better not forget. Trump hatred, Trump derangement syndrome, folks, is deep in the soul of this nation by many. And don't ever underestimate the stupidity of that American voter. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful tonight. I'm saying it with all due respect. But don't underestimate the lack of concern for this nation's well-being over a political idolatry and political agendas and hatred for one man. Because it runs deep. It runs deep. All right, speaking of the COVID situation, this is the video I was playing for you a while ago. I thought was the election video. Don't let them forget this either, by the way. Sadly, we have, but we need to be reminded of what they told you about the China flu.
The vaccine can stop the spread of these diseases. You're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
These vaccines are highly, highly effective.
Vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick.
They're really, really good against variants.
Everyone who takes the vaccine is not just protecting themselves, but reducing their transmission to other people and allowing society to get back to normal.
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person.
Get your first shot, and when you're due for your second, get your second shot.
Our key goal is to stop the transmission, to get the immunity levels up so that you get almost no infection going on whatsoever.
A vaccinated person gets exposed to the virus does not infect them. The virus cannot then use that person to go anywhere else.
When people are vaccinated, they can feel safe that they are not going to get infected.
If you're vaccinated, you're not going to be hospitalized. You're not going to be in an ICU unit.
Really?
And you're not going to die.
Really? Use a vaccinated person as a host to go get more people.
If you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask.
Anyone who is fully vaccinated can participate in indoor and outdoor activities, large or small, without wearing a mask or physical distancing.
Companies and personalities are making money by peddling lies and allowing misinformation that can kill their own customers and their own supporters. It's wrong. It's immoral.
There's been over a 20-to-1 return.
If you had put that money into an S&P 500 and reinvested the dividends, you'd come up with something like $17 billion, but you think it's $200 billion.
Here, yeah.
What a crock of crap. What a crock of crap. To me, this was more immoral. This was what was immoral. The way that they lied to us about the mask, about the vaccines. I'm not one of these that don't believe it was a virus, folks. I had the virus. There was something in the air in 2020 and 2021 like to kill me. But let me tell you this. The way the government weaponized that virus against Trump, and they weaponized it to make sure we didn't go to the polls and vote in 2020, was criminal. Now listen to me. I told Ricky this tonight. I'll say it again tonight on the Smack Show. The way this has worked out, I believe God allowed all this to happen for a reason. Because he knew that Trump would not have been as effective in 2020 had he been reelected, even though it put the country through 4 years of literal hell. 4 years of literal hell. But the way this has worked out, we're in a position to get a lot of this stuff fixed. If President Trump is allowed to fix it, there needs to be accountability for this crap right here. There needs to be accountability for J6. There needs to be accountability for the Russia hoax. There needs to be accountability for what James Comey did on that beach. I don't no more believe that he walked upon that sea and saw that seashell and that setup. His wife's out there claiming tonight that she's the one that told him that he needed to, quote unquote, take a picture of it. Are you joking me? He did it. He's the one that put those shells in that fashion. Let me tell you what it's called, by the way. I don't know if you saw this video. I'm sure you haven't. I think this is... no, that's not it. Where is that video? I keep thinking. Hang on. Let me get my glasses on here. I know I downloaded it. But these were people that were screaming today. Let me see here. Where is that at? Where is that at? Where is that at? Here it is right here. I got so many of these, I got to look for them. This is just today, folks. And if you don't believe that people know what 8647 is, roll the tape.
8647, 8647, 8647, 8647, 8647, 8647.
Let me play that again. James Comey's telling you, as a former FBI agent and as a former law enforcement officer, that he has no idea that he had no idea 8647 meant violence. Roll the tape again.
47, 86, 47, 86, 47, 86, 47, 86, 47, 86, 47.
That is what we call Trump derangement syndrome, folks. That's the American public tonight. So what Comey did, if you don't think that he was very well aware of what he was doing, he was. You know, we don't have the video clip. He was on Nicole Loser Wallace's program on MSNBC tonight, giving an explanation of this, and the explanation is more jokeable, is a joke. More, in fact, let's see if Gateway Pundit has got this. And folks, please keep it to sentences and not paragraphs, please. I've told you over and over out there, we will take your comments and questions at the end of the show. Paragraphs are a distraction, please don't. But I want to play this video of Comey tonight that he went on. Here it is right here. This is, there is, let me put this up in our Newswire page. And let me put this up in our Newswire page. We will take your questions, folks, and comments shortly. I promise you. Just bear with me. We're almost done here with the videos, and I'll take your comments. We'll be back here tomorrow night late with more of this. We always give you a chance at the end, but I want you to listen to me right now. This is Comey, 8647, and then this is him today. That's the tweet he did. He took it down. This is him on Nicole Wallace's show, MSNBC. You got to listen to this crap, folks. This is what we call bullshit on the Mac Files.
You were back in the middle of a political firestorm.
Yeah, for walking on the beach with my wife. So I don't know how we ended up here. It never occurred to me that it was any kind of controversial thing, but that's the time we live in.
So take me back to the walk on the beach.
We were walking on the beach. We went to the beach to prepare for this week, which was the launch of my book, and to think about the book and to prepare to answer questions about it. And we were walking back towards the road, and we saw in the sand someone had arranged shells with numbers. And Patrice, my wife, said, "Why would someone put an address in the sand?" And I said, "I don't know." And we stood over it, and I said, "I think it's some kind of like political message." And she said, 86, when I was a server, she did a lot of work in restaurants, meant to remove an item from the menu when you ran out of ingredients. And I said, well, to me, as a kid, it always meant to leave a place, to ditch a place. I said, that's really clever. So then she said, you should take a picture of that. And I did. And I posted it on my Instagram account and thought nothing more of it until I heard through her that people were saying it was some sort of a call for assassination, which is crazy. But I took it down. Even if I think it's crazy, I don't want to be associated with violence.
Oh, for God's sake, Jim. Do y'all believe that? Is there anybody out there that believes that? Did you hear what he just said? Me and my wife were just taking a stroll on the beach, and we came upon it, and she told me to take a picture of it. And I didn't know that it was an incite to violence. I didn't know that it was inciting an assassination attempt. I didn't know what 8647 meant, and I don't want to be part of that. Good grief. Is there anybody that believes that? Is there anybody that believes that? I know Jason Miller don't. I know Miller don't. I know Cleo don't. I know Kathy Long McDonald don't. I know Chris McDonald don't. I don't believe that. It's bullshit. I want you to listen to this crap. This is the former FBI director, folks. And I'm going to get to Bongino and Patel here in a minute. But that is why we have no faith in our institutions. This is why we can't trust our institutions. And this is why we lose all faith in all processes. Because, see, this is what's burning me up tonight. I cannot fully be convinced that he is going to pay a price for this. I'm afraid that he is going to walk like a duck and not get in any trouble over this.
You were back in the middle
Listen
of
to it again.
a political firestorm.
Yeah, for walking on the beach with my wife. So I don't know how we ended up here. It never occurred to me that it was any kind of controversial thing, but that's the time we live in.
So take me back to the walk on the beach.
We were walking on the beach. We went to the beach to prepare for this week, which was the launch of my book, and to think about the book and to prepare to answer questions about it. And we were walking back.
See, that's the whole problem. That's it right there. Good to see Kelly Manili tonight. Good to see you, friend. Hadn't seen you in a while. Good to see you. The book. He's got a book coming out this week. And James Comey is a narcissist. Can't believe I'm using that word. James Comey likes to be seen and heard. And he likes himself a lot. The book was the issue. And that tells me everything I needed to know. What he just said about the book. He did this. He did this.
Towards the road, and we saw in the sand someone had arranged shells with numbers. And Patrice, my wife, said, why would someone put an address in the sand? And I said, I don't know. And we stood over it, and I said, I think it's some kind of like political message. And she said, 86, when I was a server, she did a lot of work in restaurants, meant to remove an item from the menu when you ran out of ingredients. And I said, well, to me, as a kid, it always meant to leave a place, to ditch a place. I said, that's really clever. So then she said, you should take a picture of that. And I did. And I posted it on my Instagram account and thought nothing more of it until I heard through her that people were saying it was some sort of a call for assassination, which is crazy. But I took it down. Even if I think it's crazy, I don't want to be associated.
Which is crazy. He knew good and well what he was doing. President Trump said he knew what he was doing. Folks, you'd have to be a kindergartner. And I'm wondering, I think I'm going to try something out. I think I'm going to talk to my 6-year-old grandson about this next time I see him. And if his dad will let me. His dad may not let me. His dad don't like him talking politics with his grandpa. But I'm going to pull him to the side and explain this to him and look at him and say, do you believe that he just walked on the beach and ran up on these seashells? I'm just curious what my 6-year-old grandson will tell me. I got not much. I don't have any money, but the money I do have, I'd put on the table and believe that my 6-year-old see through this right here. But you got Nicole Wallace of MSNBC, the Nothing But Crap Network, acting like, oh, this is just so funny. It was an assassination attempt, folks. James Comey needs to be in jail tonight. He needs to be in jail. I'm afraid he ain't going to be. Couple of videos quickly. Man, we got so much stuff to talk about. I wish we had more time tonight. Boy, these hours go by quick, but we will have all week with you. This is President Trump on President Biden's doctor. The doctor is key. Roll the tape.
Given to everybody, but it's given just about, and it takes a long time to get to that situation. Now, I think to get to a stage 9, I think that if you take a look, it's the same doctor that said that Joe was cognitively fine. There was nothing wrong with him. Well, he said, if it's the same doctor, he said there was nothing wrong there, and that's being proven to be a sad situation. And the auto pen is becoming a very big deal. The auto pen is becoming a big deal because it seems like that maybe was the president who ever operated the auto pen. But when they say that that was not good, they also, you have to look and you have to say that the test was not so good either. In other words, there are things going on that the public wasn't informed, and I think somebody's going to have to speak to his doctor, if it's the same, or even if it's 2 separate doctors. Why wasn't the cognitive ability, why wasn't that discussed? And I think the doctor said he's just fine, and it's turned out.
And President Trump nailed something on that interview, folks. The auto pen is growing more and more important because this is the kicker. If Joe Biden didn't know what he was doing, if Joe Biden was auto penning these orders, these executive orders, and I'm going to throw this out there, the Kajani Brown nomination, Sotomayor was Clinton and Kagan was Clinton, not Clinton, but Obama. But Joe Biden put Kajani J. Brown, a woman that doesn't even know what a woman is, on the court. I don't even know if he realized who he was putting up. But that auto pen thing is going to be a story to follow over the next several weeks and months. And I think Trump is on to something. President Trump is on to something. They need to look at the validity of those pardons. He pardoned everybody but the Easter Bunny before he went out of office. He gave his son Biden a 6-year, I don't know how many years going back, 60-year pardon or something, that if he did something within the last 3 decades, he can't be charged for. I mean, that's nutty. So that's why this is important tonight. This is not about the man having cancer. That is the least of this. The problem is that he was in such a state that he was making decisions of the executive branch without his right mind. We've never had that challenge before ever in a court. And I've got a gut feeling that the Donald Trump Justice Department is going to be looking at these pardons without a doubt. Without a doubt. And they need to. And I think this is Steve Bannon about Merrick Garland. I may save that one for later. This is Kennedy, Senator Kennedy on Mr. Comey. Roll the tape.
John Kennedy joins us now. And, sir, it's good to see you on this Friday night. Let's start with James Comey, who found himself interviewed by the Secret Service today. Your thoughts on this Instagram post? What do you really think happened here?
Well, I have been around Mr. Comey a good bit in the Senate because he's been in front of a lot of Senate committees. To know Mr. Comey is to dislike Mr. Comey. There's a reason he doesn't get invited to too many parties. He's a butthead. You can only be young once, but you can always be immature. What Mr. Comey did was immature, but it was more than that. I think
yes,
he was trying to seek attention. Mr. Comey has a chip on his shoulder. On his shoulder has a chip on its shoulder. He probably single-handedly did more to undermine the reputation of the FBI, which before Mr. Comey took over was one of the, if not the premier organization, law enforcement organizations in the country, in the world.
Yeah. Couple of quick things. I want to show you this from yesterday. There was a big parade in New York City yesterday, the Israel Day Parade. Beautiful celebration of the Jewish heritage. Kennedy, I thought, was sort of held back a little bit there. We're going to talk about Kash Patel and Dan Bongino more tomorrow night late because I'm not happy about their interview with Maria at all. I think I've got one clip here. I'll play it right here. This is Russiagate. Patel on Russiagate. But I wanted to get the clip that they were talking about Epstein. We'll play that tomorrow night. But this is Kash Patel trying to explain what they're going to do about Russiagate. And then I got one about what happened yesterday. We couldn't even have a parade in New York where the Jews can celebrate Israel Day without jihadists and protesters interrupting it. But this is Kash Patel on Russiagate. We'll play the other one, and we'll get your questions.
I was the lead Russiagate investigator for the House Intelligence Committee, and I've been on both your shows in a prior life talking about it. And I'm telling you and the American public that we have now found material and information in people who wanted to hide it from the world since we got in these seats. And we, as the deputy said, we are trying to do it in a fashion where not only are we informing the American public of what happened, but we can have accountability for it. And that takes a little bit more time. And when you layer on the fact that we are rolling out our priorities on violent crime and defending the homeland, you know, we're running a three-part animal here, and we're going 100 miles an hour on each single one.
So important. It's
Wait,
just...
I want to add to that too, because what the director's saying is right. You got to remember, we come in the morning, there's a portfolio of 100 level 10 items. If it's a level 9, which is a pretty big freaking deal, someone else fixed it. The only thing that gets to my desk or his is a level 10. That's the entire day. Look at his schedule any given day. I'll show you the palm card I have. It is filled from 7:30 to, he leaves 7 at night, 6:30 at night. It's filled all day. We just can't focus on one thing. You want New York to go boom? DC to go boom? You want an OC organization to go hack into some cyber network and crack all of Fox News' holdings? We're dealing with all that stuff too. Everything's a priority. Everything's a priority. This is one of many things we did. It's not an excuse. It's just reality.
Well, we'll see about that. I'm gonna take my own advice. I've told you all this. I'm giving this whole apparatus to July the 4th. The Department of Justice, the FBI, CIA, the NIH. We'll see what they do. And we're approaching July 4th rapidly. But I was not thrilled with the way the two of them, and I like Dan Bongino, I like Patel, I'm not a hater of either one, but I just sensed something in them yesterday in that interview that they're not forthcoming. And that's why that's been our whole issue all along with our three-letter agencies. Just tell us the freaking truth. You know, if you've lost the Epstein files, just tell us. If they've been destroyed, just tell us. It's not like we wouldn't be shocked that people in D.C. wouldn't want that list to get out. Just tell us what's on that freaking list. Tell us who's on that list. Tell us what you found. If you want us to believe that Epstein killed himself, if that's your opinion, just say that. It's our opinion. But don't make it law. Don't make it as fact that we're supposed to believe that, because you know good and well most people don't. But just be honest. And don't promise us things you can't deliver. And Dan, there at the end, he's saying, well, I'm not making an excuse. It's just reality. I don't care about your reality. Just hush. I would rather them not say anything. I think I would have been better off not hearing them go on that program yesterday than to hear what I heard yesterday. I would just rather them not said anything. And just do your job. And when you're ready to release all this stuff, release it. I'm going to give them to July 4th. And then my attitude toward the whole thing may change, that where it's at tonight. Because I'm trying to hold out hope that they're going to do the right thing by the American people. Here's a young lady that was talking about the Israeli Day Parade yesterday in New York. And she does a great job of asking the million-dollar question, why Jews vote Democrat. Roll the tape.
I just got back from the Israeli Day Parade in New York City today, and we need to talk about the Democratic leadership that was there. I am disgusted. Governor Kathy Hochul, Chuck Schumer, Letitia James, and Jerry Nadler lecturing us Jews about being strong Israel supporters and how much they've done to support Israel. Two-state solution cheeseburger Chuck literally called for new elections in Israel 5 months after October 7th in an anti-Benjamin Netanyahu speech that he gave to Congress. Chuck Schumer leads the Democratic Party. At any point, he can censor or condemn any of the jihadist squad members like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. He doesn't, but then tells us that he's the most pro-Israel person we have. Letitia James wasted millions of taxpayer dollars in my city of New York to go after President Trump, saying that he inflated his assets at Mar-a-Lago 20 plus years ago. President Donald Trump is the only reason that the hostages that we heard from today that were speaking in front of Kathy Hochul and Letitia James, the only reason that they are back home and alive is because of President Donald Trump.
That is correct.
Biden let the American hostages rot with absolutely no plan of bringing them home. They want our money, they want our vote. Please don't fall for it. Jews, you need to stop voting Democrat. The Democratic Party has never done anything for us. They've aligned themselves with the radical jihadist anti-Israel side, and they're not going to come back. They're only going to continue going further left with these squad members. Stop voting Democrat. Stop giving your money to these people in these universities that just push these anti-Israel, anti-American ideas. And thank President Donald Trump, because out of all those people that were there today, he's the only person who has done anything for the hostages in Gaza.
I don't know who that young lady is, but I think she should run for governor of New York myself. This is the Israeli Day Parade yesterday, by the way. The same people that she talked about, they didn't condemn this. They didn't say a word about this, because this is what was happening along that parade route. Roll the tape.
You pushed me. No, you cannot push me. You work for me. Prepare yourself. Keep going.
That's those lovely, peaceful Palestinians. That's them lovely, peaceful people that we just a religion of peace. We don't want to destroy Israel. We just want to coexist with the Jews. And you racist, Islamophobic people that believe that we're out for violence, y'all just don't have a clue what we're talking about. Israel, the Jews couldn't even walk down the streets of New York yesterday, folks, and just have a peaceful parade without this bunch doing what they did. I'm going to save on to this video. I think that might be an introductory video to our McFiles Monday night smack shows. I tell you what, I could. This is what I believe about that. That's elementary, my dear Watson. By the way, one other quick video. This is a kid up in New York, got his diploma snatched for Jew hating. I wish more colleges would do the same thing, what they did to this one. This New York got up and gave the commencement speech and trashed the Jews, lost his diploma. Watch this.
My moral and political commitments guide me to say that the only thing that is appropriate to say in this time and to a group this large is a recognition of the atrocities currently happening in Palestine. The genocide currently occurring is supported politically and militarily by the United States, is paid for by our tax dollars, and has been live streamed to our phones for the past 18 months.
Well, I could get mad at the kid, but I'm not getting mad at the kid. He's only repeating crap that YouTube prophets are repeating, Telegram prophets are saying, pastors are saying, churches are saying, anti-Semites all over X are saying. Me and Ricky talked about this tonight on the Early Bird Show. It's a pathetic, pathetic shame that people believe this. But they do. We don't. And we've had to remove a few anti-Semites from time to time on the show. But we just want you to know that it's not a good idea to bring that kind of crap here. Just a reminder. If you got a question or a comment tonight, go ahead and put it in the house. Put it in the house, and we will talk to you now. And it's good to see everybody on a Monday Night Smack. Monday Night Smack. Good to see everybody in Facebook. Gabriella says, I almost was going to go to the Israeli parade. Gabriella, I wish you would have. Good evening from New York City. Good to see you. Hope to see you in Long Island, friend. We're coming to Long Island June 6th, 7th, and 8th. And, yeah, it was a beautiful parade. There's videos of it out there. I should have put a positive video up to go along with what I just showed you. But it is a shame, folks, that, you know, we can't even have an Israeli parade in New York City without this crap, without this jihadist movement. And there is no genocide in Gaza, folks. There is no genocide in Gaza. I want to say it again. There's no genocide in Gaza. No, Hamas is hiding behind hospitals. And I'm going to tell you what, Israel is leveling Gaza, but it's after that they were brutally attacked on October the 7th of 2023. The way I look at it, anything Israel does at this point is self-defense. Anything Israel does is justified. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you believe. I mean, the way I feel about it is, you know, for what Hamas did, and you say, well, we can't have an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. Let me tell you something. You can believe that all you want to. This is not an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. This is the survival of a nation. There ain't no nation, there is not any nation on this planet that would have experienced what Israel did and refrained from taking action against the perpetrator. And the world has turned this narrative as Israel's the one as being the aggressor. They're literally blaming Israel for what happened on October the 7th. They've been doing that for 18 months. But, you know, again, that kid from New York, yeah, you know, I didn't like what the kid said, but I didn't blame him. I had, you know, I think the New York University did exactly what I'd have done. I'd have stripped him of his, because he was not supposed to do that. That was not the setting for that. Go outside and hold a plaque, but don't make a graduation speech out of it. But he got that from somewhere. That kid wasn't bright enough to think of that stuff on his own. He's heard that. Where has he heard that from, I wonder? I wonder where he's heard that from. Anyway, Gabriella, I wish you'd have went. It'd been great. You could have brought some pictures back. Gord, good to see Corey Aguilar. And good to see you, dear. Oh, Gabriel, I know who you are now. Good to see you tonight. Glad to be have you in the house. And yes, we will see you at Acts 2:42. Anyway, Jennifer says, did you hear about the race car driver from Israel won the pole for the Indy 500? It's the first time a rookie. Yes, I did, Jennifer. I didn't realize he was Jewish, though. Cleo, your question is a great question. Potentially, could Johnny Brown Jackson's appointment could be overturned due to a lack of cognitive competency? I hope somebody tries to overturn that. I do. You know, there's been this discussion for 5 years now. That statement, that question has been bounced back and forth for 5 years, that if it was proven that Joe Biden illegitimately was elected, would that remove all of his actions? And, you know, they were questioning this about Obama, and that was during the time before Trump's first term. But I hope that some constitutional lawyer up in D.C. or somewhere in this country is looking into that. Boy, wouldn't that be peachy? Wouldn't that be peachy? Joe Biden had to be crazy. He had to be crazy, blank, blank crazy to put Johnny J. Jack Brown on that freaking bench. This lady is insane. I mean, I don't say that about too many folks, but that lady is nuts. And the very fact she couldn't answer the question what a woman is should have told the freaking Congress, and I blame Congress for this. The Senate had a chance, the Republicans had a chance to stop her from getting on that bench, and they didn't take it. They laid down like a tent in a hurricane and let the Democrats run right over them. Because there could have been more resistance. She won going away. It wasn't even a close vote. But it's a good question. I personally believe that they can. I may be wrong, but I'll see what happens there. Carol, you says, I'm wondering how many documents signed by AutoPen. What if they were all made null and void? Wow. Yeah, Carol, that's what they're talking about. I mean, that's what the whole discussion is about, this cognitive. That's why this is important. And I think President Trump, you know, he posted a video today. I don't know if y'all heard this or not. Trump's going there about the Hillary Clinton suicide. By the way, she's out there. Clinton. Hillary would be wise to take some sound advice from one great man known for his wise words called Solomon that says, if you don't want people to think you're a fool, please keep your mouth. I'm paraphrasing. It's basically don't open your mouth and convince as a fool to make people convince you are a fool by what you say. Hillary Clinton would be wise just to keep her mouth shut right now, because every time she opens her mouth, she gets hammered. She was trying to make a big deal about the quid pro quo of the Qatari jet. Her and Bill Clinton has got so many quid pro quo things. You look into the dictionary of quid pro quo, you see Hillary Clinton's picture. And what is that? That means taking bribes and taking money for influence. I mean, for goodness sake. If I was her, I would just shut up. Tim Walz out there calling Trump Nazis and the Gestapo. No, we're just trying to keep illegals, Tim, out of the country. Why don't you just go back to putting tampons in kindergarten rooms like you were trying to do instead of trying to worry about the country? You didn't care about the country enough before this. Why'd you just stay in Minnesota? You got your clock cleaned in November, you and Kamala. I saw Cleo's comment about people who voted for Kamala. Folks, there were Christians that voted for Kamala Harris in November. There were Christians that voted for Kamala Harris because of Trump derangement syndrome. Don't underestimate the stupidity of the American voter. And I mean that with all due respect tonight. All right. Interesting stuff. Let's see here. How do you define, Stephen, how do you define these anti-Israel protests? What do you mean how you define them? You can't. I mean, you don't know where the money's coming from. I mean, people, look, the folks, whether we like it or not, we live in a free country. They've got a right to go out there and do this. What they don't have a right to do is turn violent. And pushing and shoving and hitting people in the face and burning flags and doing stuff like that, that's where it gets to the point that it crosses the line and it breaks the law. And when they break the law, they need to have their carcasses put in jail. They got a right to protest. You can't stop them from protesting. And the money, I don't think anybody knows fully where that money's coming from. We got an idea, but all these protesters ultimately are paid, folks. They're paid actors. They're paid people. These kids, some of these kids couldn't tell you where Palestine is on a map. They couldn't spell Palestine. They couldn't spell Israel. But you can't, free speech, that's why we have the First Amendment. And free speech means that there's going to be things that people say, folks, we just don't like. You ain't got to agree with it, but they got a right to say it as long as they're doing it peaceably. And that works on both sides. Stephen, and we can't. There's no way to defund it. Now, these college campuses, it's a little different because they're getting federal taxpayer money and they're not protecting Jewish students. And that's a whole different ball of wax to allow anti-Semitism on your campus. And the federal government has got a right to say, look, we don't allow that for you to take our tax dollars and do that. We can stop that. They can defund the colleges. But as far as these protests on the streets in New York, pretty much ain't nothing you can do as long as they're obeying the law. Now, most of these don't obey the law. They get ugly and burn things down and flags and beat people up. That's a whole different discussion. But as far as the protest itself goes, it's First Amendment. First Amendment right. You know, it is what it is. I'm not saying I like it. But anyway. And Debbie, your statement about people will be disappointed when Joe Biden passes. Debbie, I don't know what you're trying to say there, but look, nobody's rejoicing. Nobody even on our side. Why should they not be disappointed when he passes? Look, folks, we don't rejoice in the death of the wicked. Nobody should be rejoicing when Joe Biden passes. Nobody. I mean, why shouldn't people be disappointed? I can separate Joe Biden the man and what Joe Biden did. I pray to God Joe Biden never sees another political office in the rest of his days. Okay? But I can tell you right now, Joe Biden the man, I'm praying for his soul. And I'm not going to use the word disappointed, but for his family's sake, I'll be sad for his family's sake. And we all should take a look at that because, folks, there ain't none of us got a right to throw a stone at Joe Biden. None of us. And if we think we do, we better check our hearts tonight. Because we don't have a right to judge him. I can separate him and separate the situation of the presidency. I got no problem doing that. Because it's two different things. But anyway, so I'm not quite understanding what you're asking there, but people should be disappointed. They should be sad if a president passes. Anyway, I'll leave that alone. Any other questions? Let's see what my Facebook folks are saying. Corey says it is better to keep your mouth closed and let people think you are a fool than to open it and remove all doubt. Corey Aguilar, I got to play this for you, Corey. Thank you so much. That's elementary, my dear Watson. That is elementary, my dear Watson. Good to see you, friend. Good to see you. Bless you down there in Jacksonville. All righty, folks. It's 11 o'clock. We've been giving you an hour and 27 minutes. Did you enjoy McFiles Smack on a Monday night? We didn't get to we didn't get to all of the stuff we got to talk about, but I tell you what, we got a lot to do this week. We'll be back here late tomorrow night with the Tuesday night show. Probably have James Akers on the phone. Carl and Nicole will be with us Thursday night. Mark White will be with us Wednesday night, 6 o'clock. He'll be with us on the Face Chat. It'll be a good show. And what are we going to do Friday night? Friday night, you may have this old gray-headed dude again. We had a good McJustice show. We had a lot of good feedback from McJustice, and who knows, we might do another McJustice episode, but more than likely we'll do something else Friday night. This weekend's Memorial Day weekend, and we want to thank, Memorial Day is the day that we recognize the veterans that have died. Veterans Day, we recognize the veterans that are serving, that are living. But we recognize all the military and all these families that have sacrificed for the freedom of our country. And we'll go ahead and give an early week tip to all the veterans, Amy, the Navy, Army, Air Force, and the Marines, all those that have given the ultimate cost and price for the freedom of the United States of America. And this weekend, Monday, a week from tonight, we'll honor them on Memorial Day. And we send our prayers to those families still, that I'm sure their hearts are saddened by the loss of their loved one. And it's going to be a good week. We're going to have a good time. We got a lot more videos to show you this week. The way that it happens in America, when I go to bed at night, I hold my breath. When I wake up the next morning, to what the headlines are overnight. So whatever it is I plan to do tomorrow night is subject to change, depending on conditions on the ground and whether Armageddon hits overnight, okay? I'm just saying, because I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't think any of us do. There's no telling what's going to happen between now and tomorrow. The Telegram room, Cleo put the link in there. Thank you, dear. She put the Telegram room link in there. Check us out on Telegram. We've got a lot of these stories already listed up there. Our X account, we're really putting a lot of stuff on X these days. Look for us on X at the McFiles55. Please be sure to join us there. Like and subscribe to these videos, folks. Please subscribe to our YouTube channels. Please subscribe to our Telegram rooms. We need you. Like our Facebook page. Like our YouTube page. And stay with us. It's going to be a good week of stuff. We got a lot more to talk about. There's a lot going on. Trust me. That's for sure. It's elementary, my dear Watson. Jeannie Castellanova, one more time, just for you tonight.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? I hope you did tonight. Put some fire in that house if you enjoyed the show. I'll see you back here tomorrow. No Bible study in the morning. We'll be back there Wednesday. But listen, stay with us through the week. We got a lot of good stuff coming. Be blessed out there tonight. Have a good night, everybody. Be safe in the Midwest and the South. God bless.